More than 2 decades since Molly Bish disappeared from her lifeguard post in the town of Warren. And tonight, a new person of interest has just been named in her murder. The district attorney says that person is Frank Sumner Sr. Police began investigating him after receiving a tip in the case. Sumner died in 2016, but detectives' search for information is not over. He was known to run auto repair shops in Spencer, Leicester, and Worcester. And investigators are asking people to come forward with more details on his employment and other habits. I spoke with Molly's sister, Heather, moments after she got the news. Heather Bish told me that this new information may finally give her family the answers they've been searching for. She also revealed that Sumner's name is very familiar to her.
Heather, start by telling me, where are your feelings at right now hearing this latest news?
Well, I have all kinds of feelings, to be honest with you, but I think the most predominant feeling I have is gratitude. I am so grateful that we've been asking people for 20 years to come forward with information about Molly and what happened to Molly, and if they saw anything or if they knew anything. And it was a tip. It was a recent tip that was able to really identify this person. Perhaps he was on the radar before, but it was a newer information that was able to, really bring this person of interest out, and really that's what they're looking for now, is just some more information on this person. I think, they've got a lot that they're willing to come forward to make this announcement. So I think we're very close, and I guess I'm also very relieved. I'm a teacher, and I've been trying to find a murderer for 20 years, and it's been really hard. And I'll be really grateful to be just a teacher again.
I think most people in this area remember the night that Molly disappeared. This has been just one of those ongoing stories that just feels like it needs some type of closure. I can hear in your voice that you need that closure pretty badly yourself.
I do. I needed to know who took my sister and left her on the side of a mountain for a long time. That was important to me. I cannot imagine someone having to go through something like that. And it's just devastating. The idea of what could have happened to Molly is scary and devastating, but knowing what happened or knowing the person that was responsible is huge. We need to make sure we get these people off the street. I mean, this person, Frank Sumner, had been convicted of an aggravated rape and kidnapping. He's a bad guy, and he hid amongst us. People were doing business with him. He was operating around all of us, and he was, possibly getting away with murder. We really need to look at all these cases, all of these older cases, and see if we can come to resolution for all of them, because it continues. It's like an illness, a generational curse per se, or the trauma that just continues. People bring it to that next generation and that next generation, and I think it's important for us to have, the resolution for Molly, but we really need to get these bad guys off the street so nobody else gets hurt.
The district attorney at one point described your family's reaction to this as bittersweet. Is that the proper description of how you're feeling? And can you explain that? Sure.
I think that knowing who did this to Molly has always been important to us, and been our objective and our goal, and to get this person off the street. So of course we are grateful and relieved that is possible, but we're scared. I mean, we're scared to know what happened to Molly. I mean, just reading about what he's done to other women, and that potentiality of what he could have done to Molly is frightening, and it makes sort of the nightmares become real. So it's bittersweet. It brings us back to that day. We're all sort of in our trauma brains right now, and and wandering around in a fog. And my mom and I have been desperately calling all of Molly's friends and family and my brother's friends and, people who worked with us on this, and just to make sure that they know, because we weren't the only ones that loved Molly. Molly was loved by, her aunts and her best friends and my brother's friends, my friends. Our community loved Molly. And I think that's why it's made such a big impact on us in Massachusetts. And it's been so important for us to solve this case.
Heather, what is your understanding of sort of how this latest twist, so to speak, has unfolded? What exactly happened here?
So I think this person has been on the radar for quite some time, and I believe that there was information that came forward in a new tip, perhaps a couple tips, that made this person sort of more pliable to being that person that took Molly. I mean, I've brought all these persons of interest forward with private investigators and the media, but the police have never brought anyone forward. So this is a big deal. And I know they have been committed to this case, and I know, and I'm grateful that they've looked at every guy that I've ever brought forward, because again, I'm just trying to figure out who did this, but I think it was the tips. And I think for families with unresolved cases, keeping those stories out there is the most important thing. And, I've met some of these younger generation advocates, victim advocates that are doing podcasts, and they're having tremendous results by sharing the stories, and tips come in, and people are getting arrested that have done these egregious crimes. So I, again, express the gratitude to the community for giving those tips and being brave enough to come forward and encourage those with crimes like this to tell their stories.
Is this a name that you had heard before?
Yes.
Is this a name that you have brought to police before?
Yes.
And what have you been told in the past?
They don't really tell me anything. I mean, it's basically, I give them information and I know and trust that they're doing their job. They don't, tell me where they are at with a certain investigation. It's not maybe like TV, it's very difficult to be in a victim family. You really have to trust that the police are doing their job. And
what was it about Frank Sumner that had you bringing his name to police in the past? And how long ago was that?
It was about 3 years ago.
Okay.
Someone in his family had come forward and was really brave enough to give me information. And it was pretty strong.
So 3 years ago, you brought...
And, we can go back and look at this guy's criminal record. I mean, he's got a lengthy criminal record, but specifically an aggravated rape and kidnapping, and got released 2 years before my sister disappeared. I mean...
When you went to police with the information, was he already dead at that point?
Yes.
Okay. And is there any frustration at all that you brought that name 3 years ago with what you're saying was pretty good information, and it's only now that a few other tips came in that there's considered to be this new development?
No, that doesn't bother me as much as this man possibly being in the original maybe list of people we were looking at in the beginning. I mean, we were looking at sex offenders and trying to widen the net of who could have possibly did this, and there was a lot of focus in the beginning on Molly's boyfriend. And Molly's boyfriend, was 16 years old. He didn't know how to handle having a missing girlfriend or the media or being accused of such an egregious crime. I mean, for me, Steve Lucas is always the second biggest victim in this case, because Steve lost his life 9 years later.
Tell me what happens now. What happens from here that finally closes this case for you and your family?
I think we're going to ask the community and the people to come forward. If you know Frank Sumner or you know anything about Frank Sumner, I just spoke to a reporter a little while ago, and she told me that he brought flowers into the courthouse to give the clerks when he went to court. So he seems a little manipulative, and these little things that people might know or have information on about this person is important, because all those little pieces are going to lead the investigators to that whole picture of the puzzle. And once they have that whole picture, then we'll know. And, you know, I don't know that we'll know exactly what happened to Molly, but if we know the person who did it, that's good enough for me.